Folks, welcome to the show. I've been traveling all week. Pretty happy to be home. Bit of a homebody. It's episode 43 of this video game podcast for grown-ups and adult gamers. It's called The Andy B Show. This is the show for Monday, March 16th, but I've been recording them live now for about a month. And it's kind of fun, yeah. But I want it to sound great, look great, feel great wherever you watch it and whenever you watch it. When that could be months later. It could be when you're traveling. Maybe you're out there on the road. I don't know. I don't know what you're doing out there. But I know that what we're doing in here is talking about video games because we got a packed slate. There's a little marathon talk because I put that PlayStation Portal to work. Crimson Desert launches this week. We've got all of the specs. There's a new launch trailer. I saw somebody drifting their horse. I didn't know you could drift a horse, but I saw somebody do it. What isn't in that game? Could fill a whole podcast. Highguard's dead, but Yoshi is back. Ball pits on mobile. Dave the Diver is going to the jungle. GDC was out here. There's a bunch of news that came out of GDC around Project Helix, that new Xbox machine. Somebody's got to pay Fortnite's bills. Maybe it's you. And we're going to talk a little bit about what it took to get Arc Raiders out the door. It's a really cool article. Some indie quick hits. All that. But I was on a plane. I flew around. I had to go travel for work. Got to, really. You get to travel, right? Isn't it a delight to travel? My youngest bee is not happy when I travel. She wants dad around, but the sacrifices we make, right? So sometimes the travel's worth it. It was a good travel week. Like I think that, I think it was fine. Got a lot of stuff done. Sometimes you just got to get out there and travel. But I didn't get a lot of gaming done as a result. But I did, for the first time, pack up the old PlayStation Portal and actually take it on the road. I have it here next to me. I still haven't put it back on its charger. It's in its case. The thing that you'll note about the PlayStation Portal case is that it is not slim. It's a hefty boy. There's a lot to it. I think traveling with the Switch is a lot easier. The Switch is much thinner and the controllers are much thinner. And I've talked about this a few episodes ago where I think the PlayStation Portal is probably way more comfortable to hold. And why? Because it's got basically a ripped apart like PlayStation controller on each side, like with the full comfort and depth of holding on. Like, I mean, you really feel like you're holding on to this thing. A little bit bigger screen than your phone. You can get one of those backbone devices for your phone. That's not bad. But I've tried the backbone. They had the backbone on sale at Costco some time ago, a couple Christmases ago. They had a version of it. I was like, hey, this plugs into my phone, but actually, even with an iPhone Pro Max screen, it still wasn't quite big enough to do most games. I was like, I'd rather just be playing a mobile game. I'd rather be playing Ball Pit, or a game that's kind of designed for a small screen. But when you want to play a big screen game on a small screen, you need every possible millimeter of screen to make it happen. And Marathon's definitely that way. Like there's so much information coming at you that if you don't have maximum screen real estate, like it's going to be a little painful, I feel. I think that the surprising thing to me, and the thing that many people were like giving me hassle about online when I said, oh yeah, I'm taking the PlayStation Portal and I'm streaming some Marathon. They're like, don't do that to us. Or like, I hope you're not in my crew. If you're getting on that way, like, please don't be in my crew. Please just be in the opposing crew. Why? Because they feel like they think that it's not going to go well. But let me tell you something. The Wi-Fi in hotels in the Dallas Fort Worth airport is more solid than you think. I posted some speedtest.net results from my phone, which is, you know, analogous to the type of speed I'm getting out of the PlayStation Portal. And it's like, man, I got 400 megabits down, 600 up, 1 millisecond jitter, and like a 7 for the ping. That's better than my home Wi-Fi by a mile. And I have like a gig up and down, but the Wi-Fi is just not as solid. And so like if I'm dealing with better Wi-Fi than I get at home, actually it plays like a dream. Like you couldn't tell. There was no stutter. There was no network lag. The only thing you're dealing with really is two parts. The smaller screen, because it's an 8-inch screen on there, I think, but it's just smaller. Like, you know, if you ever watch the show on video, whether it's on like Spotify or YouTube or something else, you'll see that I have this TV in the background. It's over here. And it's a 55-inch television. And I sit, whatever the recommended seating distance is for a 4K TV is actually like, what if you sat 3 inches from the television to get the full quality? It's like, I sit pretty close. You know, this room's not that big that I'm in. You know, I probably sit 6-8 feet away, which is kind of the target, actually. When you look at the manufacturer, like, here's how far back you should sit from the TV, it's way closer than you think to get the full detail and breadth, especially as they make things better and better. So when I'm home, like it's good looking. It looks amazing. You see everything. It's an OLED. It's a monster screen. And so to go from that down to the little 8-inch LCD screen with the, you know, fluorescent light reflection from the airport while I'm waiting for my flight that got delayed for hours and hours. It's fine. I'm home safe. I'm thankful. But I had time on my hands in that airport. Yeah, like it works. The thing that didn't work, or the thing that's a little bit different about that PS Portal when you're trying to do the FPS, is though the size of the screen is like really close to what you'd expect, or rather the size of the controller is really close to what you'd expect. What's maybe not the same is the thumbsticks. They have this slightly smaller thumbsticks, and so you kind of have to get used to that. And even though it streams like the latest version of Marathon, and there was a patch, and we're going to talk about the patch notes here in a second, there wasn't an obvious, I thought all of my settings would come over as far as like the visual, like how fat, the turning radius for horizontal and vertical, and it did not. And so I was like, man, everything's slow as molasses. Maybe they were right. Maybe those haters on the internet were right. I can't stream Marathon on the PlayStation Portal and be competitive or get some quests done or do what I need to do. Not true. I just needed to bump up the horizontal and vertical like speed, you know? So I think it was fine after that. The one downside for me was I didn't have a great microphone. I had my like Bose in-ear headsets, these sport headphones I've had for like a decade, and they're wired and they plug in. But Bose was always funny. They have, well, it's not even their fault, I don't think. I think it was like the iPhone headset and like everybody else's headset had like a slightly different spacing on the headphone microphone part on the little 1/4-inch or 1/8-inch jack. And so the mic wasn't coming through. So I could hear, but when I was talking into the mic. And the mic on the PlayStation Portal is like at the top behind the screen and like under behind the screen. And I did not want to yell in the airport. Like, we got another squad. There's teams after us. Quick. You know? I didn't want to be yelling that out. So I did mostly solo runs in the airport, but there's certain things when you're trying to unlock all these faction quests where I did one last night, which was for Sekaguchi Genetics. And Sekaguchi Genetics has a first quest. Their quests in Marathon are all about pushing the limits of your runner shell. And so you do real dumb stuff. It's like in a single run, take fall damage and get hurt by these little bugs that come after you. And overheat your shell 3 times. So those are like all 3 things you don't want to do normally. Like you avoid that, but they're like, do it. Like we got research to do and we need your telemetry. So that's a great quest to do on a solo run. You just go knock it out. And so yeah, logging in, knocking stuff out, reading codex entries probably isn't great because of the screen size. But largely it was like, man, I did several solo runs and then realized like there's zero performance reason. Like I'm holding my own. There's no reason for me not to do crew fill. So I did crew fill. No one said, what are you doing? No one said, we can tell you're on the PlayStation port. Nobody, it was fine. There was no problem at all. So I think if you have solid, rock solid Wi-Fi, and I think I'm going to invest some dollars, not a lot of dollars, but I was doing some research. Like maybe there's some of these Razer headphones that are like wired with a good mic that would be good for it, because the PlayStation Portal Link headphones or like their wireless ones that are super, super low latency, they want $200 for it. It's like, okay, I don't travel with it that much and I don't mind a wire. So I'm not going to go that far. I don't think I'm in for $200, but I might be in for like $30 for another headset that's solid. So I think I'm going to do that. Because when I do travel with it, despite the fact that it is a little bit bulky, it worked. Like it worked very well. So if you're out there and you're like, I'm traveling, I need the PlayStation Portal, give it a shot. I think it's solid, even for marathon. Like I was getting squad takedowns. I looted a ton of stuff. I filled up my inventory. I had to start selling stuff. Like I had a couple of good exfils and got some quests done. And really, like, what else might you want to do than that in any given marathon run? Got a couple quests done, took down some squads, looted a bunch of goop. It's great. You're done. And I'm done talking about the Marathon on PlayStation Portal for now, until the next time I go travel. Marathon did have a patch this week. They dropped a 1.0.0.4. So there was more ammo in the free kits, which is a big deal because you run out of ammo fast. They slightly nerfed like the UESC bots, the chat GPTs of Marathon. They put a little more med cabinets and more ammo boxes on perimeter, which is like the game's starting map, which is, really where you want to start, and really where you need the help. Once you have a bunch of good runs, you're like, I got to get rid of some stuff. I got too much money. You start needing that upgrade that lets your wallet carry another 50,000 in cash because you're like, well, I got filling it up. Time to sell the green stuff, buy some blues. They did increase the gunshot range. One of the cool things about arc raiders is when you would load in, if you could hear a fight on a clear day, when it's not doing the rain or the weather, you would hear the shots kind of echoing across the landscape. And the geo-positioning in the headphones of like, where's that coming from was pretty good. You're like, oh, there's a fight over there. I can't see it, but I can hear it. Well, now you can do that in Marathon, but it turns out the Marathon maps, I don't think are nearly as big as the Arc Raider maps. And so when they increase like the gunshot audio range, all of a sudden, like it's just a battle royale. And I experienced this where, you're getting, they call it third partied when you are fighting a series of bots or when you are fighting another squad and another squad hears it and comes in. They call it getting third partied. I'm going to teach you all the terms. I'm learning the terms. I'm going to teach them to you as soon as I can, as soon as I figure them out. You're getting third partied. You're getting fourth and fifth partied now. Just all the time. It's too much because you can hear the fights from so far away. So everybody's like, let's go in. Other people are fighting. Let's third party them, knock them out while they're not looking, right? Come up from behind them, take all their stuff. Budgie's game director, Joe Ziegler, acknowledged the distance was an overreaction and promised to partially roll it back. I think it's good that you could see it pretty far out, or hear it pretty far out. But it's a little too far, just a little bit. Yeah. Um, they're doing some stuff for high-end PCs in their next patch. I don't have one of those. Don't care. They are. I care for all of you that have a high-end PC. God bless. They're doing some stuff for performance for you on the PS5 Pro and the Portal. Runs like butter, no problem. I do wish the load in was a little bit faster. I always wish that on like the Destiny maps when you play Destiny, like loading into a planet on Destiny seemed like it'd take like 19 years. Maybe it was faster on PC, but on console it was always like, well, I guess I'll scroll on threads or something, you know? Seems okay. So yeah, that's the other thing they're going to be updating is like just how much ammo you can stack up in your stash. So every ammo is like you have 60 on a unit, 60 ammo of light ammo or whatever, and they're going to make it to where it's like 600 ammo. So you're going to end up saving a lot of stash space on ammo, which is good because sometimes you're like dropping ammo because you're like, I don't want to bring this back. It's just going to anyway. Yeah, I've been Marathon's still the game. For some of you though, Marathon is not going to be the game, especially not this week. This week, many of you might be out there going, you know what it's time for? It's time for Crimson Desert. Yeah. Crimson Desert is a video game that might be like an game. It might be like the video game of video games. Again, I saw someone drifting a horse today. The more I've heard about this game, the more it sounds like it has a history as an MMO. It started out as an MMO, and the developer previously made an MMO. And it kind of seems like that in that there is a lot of activities. And if you were a staff that was making an MMO, you might have people that are like, well, I'm on the minigame team, and I'm on the combat team, and I'm on the exploration team, and I'm on the quest team. And how are we going to thread all these together with the narrative team? It seems like they have all those teams, but they just put it in a single player game. I'm looking at trains and grappling hooks. They're flying dragons around. There's lockpicking. There's a jetpack. I saw somebody flying with a jetpack. So like what isn't in the game? Which again leads people like me to go, if the game is so packed, how can it be good? Right? You got a little bit of everything and not enough of nothing. I don't think that statement made sense, but you know what I mean? Like the focus is so broad. Like, how are you going to make it all great if you're doing everything? That's the thing I don't understand. And I don't think we're going to know until such time as it launches and we see some reviews. So we're going to find out. I'm looking forward to finding out. I don't know that I'm looking forward to spending all this money on it. I think I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and see the reviews. I'm going to wait and hear from all of you that are playing Crimson Desert. They did put out the specs. People, we said last week that the community manager, whoever here in the US, was like, no, you need to wait. Like, you need to find out. Like, give me a chance, you know, like, let us cook is what he said. Like, it's been cooking for a while, buddy. So let us cook turned into, well, here's your PC specifications, which is to say they seemed reasonable to people. They also announced that they were going to put in the de novo DRM software, but that these specs where they're saying like, hey, you're going to get 1440p at 60 FPS if you've got a GeForce 4070. They said that was test and only 16 gigs of RAM, which seems low. They got 16 gigs of RAM across everything. No 32 gigs, no 64 gigs. But they said these specs come from their testing with the de novo on it. But people really wanted to know about the console specs, so those are here too. So if you got a PlayStation 5, which is what most people have, they've got performance, balanced, and quality, which, you almost always get that. And they say on performance, you're going to get 60 FPS with variable refresh rate, and 1080p, low ray tracing. But over on PlayStation 5 Pro, they're going to say on performance, which is where I play. Like, I want the 60 FPS at least. They're talking about upscaled 4K from 1080p, so they're going to use the frame interpolation stuff that Sony's put on the PlayStation, which is smart, and get 60 FPS with variable refresh rate and ray tracing high. Yeah, there's apparently a ray tracing ultra you can get to, but yeah, well, how's that Xbox Series S doing? Let's take a look. On performance, it's 720p, no ray tracing, and 40 FPS. I mean, I'm glad you could still play the game, but woof. Yeah, it's pretty tough. They did they did put out specs for the ROG Xbox Ally, and it runs about as well as the Xbox Series X does. It's fun. Yeah, I mean, it's like a portable machine. It's fun. I wonder how it runs on the PlayStation Portal. I wonder what signal they're sending over the internet. Yeah. So if you're looking forward to that, enjoy. Let me know how it goes. You might know this, but you can send me an email to podcast@andyb.show. And I will read that email, and I may read it on the air. And if you're somebody that's looking for emails, or you got feedback, you're thinking about Crimson Desert, and you play it this week, send me an email, podcast@andyb.show. I'd love to hear from you. Already launched last week, really. Monster Hunter Stories 3 came out. The Metacritic is pretty good. It's an 86 out of 100 on PS5. Famitsu gave it a near perfect 4 nines, 36 out of 40. Gorgeous visuals, full voice acting, more mature story. I started playing the Monster Hunter Stories, first Monster Hunter Stories, because it came out on the PlayStation game catalog. And it's kind of got this like chibi, big head, high-pitched voice. It's very JRPG anime game. So they're trying to make it a little more adult here, which seems okay. The Game Informer review, I think, was painful. They gave it a 7.5. And that is a good game rating. It's a good game rating, but it's still a 7.5. The summary on that one was that they said, my grievances with Monster Hunter Stories 3 are relatively minor. It's an RPG that plays it safe. And while that means it avoids massive missteps, it also fails to make much of an impression. Despite spending over 60 hours exploring its world, I don't expect to think much about Twisted Reflection now that I've rolled the credits. At the very least, it was a joy to look at. So, if you're looking for a pretty good Monster Hunter Stories game, I think you're going to get it there. Yeah. I mentioned earlier that GDC happened last week, and they talked more about the next-gen console from Xbox, which sure sounds like it's basically just a PC that plays Xbox games. I saw somewhere else they were saying, like, oh, we're looking to bring all the emulated, backwards compatible Xbox games from the first Xbox 360, etc. We're looking for you to be able to play those on your PC as well if you own them. So they're just converging, right? And everything they talked about last week at GDC was more about the convergence. They're basically making a PC. They're making it for the next version of DirectX. I'm so glad I haven't had to install DirectX in forever. But it's a lot of like frame generation stuff. It's got an AMD system on a chip that's going to be customized. The big news there was that the alpha dev kits are shipping out to developers in 2027. Think about that. Alpha dev kits 2027. So is it going to launch in 2027? Don't think so. That sure sounds like a 2028 at the earliest to me, but you know what? Maybe they'll rush it. Maybe they'll just say, you know what? You just make your game for Xbox. You make it for PC. You're making it for Xbox. Just ship it. We'll find out. There's an Xbox mode coming to Windows 11, which I don't have in my house. Do you have Windows 11 in your house? Starting in April. So that's what it's going to be, right? You're going to turn that Xbox on. It's going to be like, boom, Xbox mode. But it's basically a Windows PC running underneath, probably with Microsoft Copilot. They all talked about, I saw that they had put out a thing where your AI is going to take over for a little while you're playing if you need help. And to be fair, some people need help in video games, but I don't think it's a problem if you have some type of help in there, but it just means they're going to have Copilot running underneath the Xbox hardware, taking over your game. I don't know. Maybe it's fine. It feels weird to me, I think. Yeah. A couple other games that I saw across the internet that came across the old video game desk. One of them out there is called Shard Punk, which I think if you're really into like XCOM, I think they've made an XCOM video game without having to like make it very expensive, which is a big deal. So Shard Punk is definitely like a turn-based, someone's going to set themselves in as like Overwatch, somebody's going to like do a reaction hit when an enemy pops up so it's turn-based. It looks a lot like it's a pixel-based art style, 2.5D perspective, and there's Overwatch and reaction attacks, and that's most of what you need to know. You're fighting this like rat invasion, these humanoid-sized rats. I think the lower poly like story and art style here probably serves this well. I think if you're really into hardcore character upgrading, tactical structure, those games don't get made as much because not as many people buy them. So what can you do? Reduce the cost a little bit. And the art and everything else, this looks good though. Like it looks congruent. But, if you try and make it look like Crimson Desert and it's a turn-based tactical RPG, it's not going to sell. The game's not going to be around for very long. It's not going to make it through the investment round. But they say that they're naming some games that they're after, that they're trying to emulate, right? XCOM being one of them, turn-based strategy. And the other one was Darkest Dungeon, where you're trying to care about the stress and feelings and relationships of the crew that you're taking in. So if you were out there going like, man, I really need my XCOM fix. They haven't made XCOM in forever. These other turn-based games, they're just not doing it. And I like a pixel art style. Shard Punk might be the thing for you. I think it comes out very soon. It's already out on PC, but it's coming out on consoles on March 26th. Yeah. So take a look at that one if that's you. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, question coming in live in the chat here. We're going to take a slight pivot and detour. Do you think Arc Raiders types of games will be the new frontier of gaming? That's either Al Hack 20 or AI Hack 20. How are you doing today? Yeah. I don't, that's an interesting question. We've been talking a lot about it. So, if we're going to pivot back into it just for a second, because I was trying to be done talking about Arc Raiders and Marathon, but actually we do have an Arc Raiders story coming up later. And maybe I'll just take that now. So looking down in the agenda, there was a really great story that I said, like, give yourself the gift of done. There was an article that came out on Games Radar that said that the Arc Raiders devs spent 3 years fighting on a, quote, daily basis on what the game was. Is it a battle royale? Was it a hero looter shooter? That was one of the big options. They had a co-op like Souls game was one of the themes, the way they thought about it as a development team, or a co-op Shadow of the Colossus game. And you can kind of see like when they have those huge arc robots that you have to climb on it, you have to zip line up, you have to take them down in certain ways. You could see how they got there. And it was back in 2020, apparently when they were like really working on it, and they had this quote here from the production director, Caio Braga, who was speaking at GDC this last week. He says, I started in 2020 at Embark, 1 year into production, and no one could answer me what the game was. He says, or everyone could actually, but the answers are very different. You'd ask someone who would say it's a battle royale versus the Arc Raiders, or maybe it's a co-op Shadow of the Colossus, all that. So others would focus on how it's all about these session-based raids. And other people thought it was a co-op Souls game, a very difficult game against the Arc. And so for him, it was a boss race with obstacles. So every different like area of the organization, and this is kind of what I thought about Crimson Desert. We looked at that earlier, and it comes out this week. Crimson Desert feels like every part of their crew, every part like is like think it's a different game because they put every game in there. Like every type of activity seems to be in there. So for Arc Raiders, like even then, like they didn't know what kind of game it was, and apparently they had to do a reset. They had 120 people working on the game at that point, and they had to kind of like decide what the game was going to be. It's an incredible article. It's on gamesradar.com. I recommend everybody go read it. But they had just very different art style, UI styles, but mostly it was about like, what's the loop of the game? And they would have these game bake-offs. Like, what's it actually going to be? Let's pit the Battle Royale version here against the Souls co-op version, against the Shadow of the Colossus version of Arc Raiders. Not what we ended up with was an extraction game, right? But so they said that they took it up to their to Nexon and said, like, we need more money. They hadn't hit some milestones, or they were coming up against some milestones. They're like, we need more funding. We kind of want to reset the game. And we're going to go from 120 people on the game down to 25. I don't know if they let those folks go or they just moved them on other projects. They didn't say. Because they were trying to make every game. And not in the like, focus entertainment, like we don't make games for everybody kind of games. Like they had like they had like 6 hardcore versions of Arc Raiders. And what they said that they really had the foundation for, what they really could go back and ask Nexon for more money for, was a very interesting extraction game. That's kind of what they ended up with, is the thing that was the most valuable to them. So the thing that I've learned, I found that fascinating, by the way, like as an organization, how like everyone had a different version of the game in their head. I mentioned early in the show, I was just traveling for work. And I was meeting up with a big account that we have, and we had all of our leadership people on that account there. And it's like, hey, let's draw out what we think we're building here. And it's like the blind men all touching the elephant, Everybody feels a different part of the elephant and has a different interpretation of what the game's going to be. It's fascinating. And that's why you have to get together and the focus on a vision, actually ship something. To give yourself, as John Acuff would say, the gift of done. You have to focus and decide, or it'll never ship. And it wouldn't have. This game could have crashed and burned, and they've sold 14 million copies in the first 3 months. So back to the question from AI Act 20. Is an Arc Raiders type of game or an extraction game the new frontier of gaming? You got Marathon. It's an extraction game. Extraction games have been around for a few years. There's some Tarkov freaks that listen to me. They're just waiting for me to turn into one of them, Played some PUBG. I mean, it's almost been, how long's PUBG been out? Feels like the extraction game as an idea has probably been out closer to 10 years than 5, is my guess. But at least 5 years. I think it is controversial. There's not enough of a come together kumbaya to it. But when I think back to Counter-Strike, that early 2000s, over 25 years ago, Counter-Strike, the old CS 1.3, we played a lot of that in the LANs. That was all adversarial. It was like, get your teams together, we're fighting, right? And it was hardcore. Bullet drop. Did they have bullet drop? Not bullet drop. But every one of the guns acted in a certain way. You had a long time between when you'd take your shots. It wasn't like Unreal Tournament back then where you were, if you got hit, if you died, you were right back in. Constant action. Like that game was like, you make a mistake, you're waiting for a few minutes while this round ends. And so there was consequence and weight to your actions in Counter-Strike when you were playing round-based Counter-Strike that you couldn't really get in a lot of other first-person shooters at the time, which were mostly about deathmatch. And the weight of it, if you had time to play, was what made it powerful and addicting. Because when you started the next run and you bought your guns and you set your, you know, squad strategy for the next round, you saw what the other group did, you were like, you know what? This is our round. Like, we've got it, and it meant something. Whereas if you play Call of Duty, I haven't played Black Ops 7. Last one I played was like Modern Warfare 2 from a couple of years ago. Yeah. Deathmatch is fun, but there's no weight to it. You just play it and stop. There's the only loop is kind of in the build crafting, in the filling up the bar, you know, the XP bars. Like, that was fine. That was fun. But there's something special about the weight of these extraction shooters, about you giving a rip about your loadout because it's at risk and you're going to lose it. I don't think I've felt anything like that in a game probably since Counter-Strike. And even in Counter-Strike, it wasn't, you know, real permanent. It was just round based, you know, and once you left the server you were in, or if you left back then, if you left the LAN studio, that was it. And you just moved on. But this one has a sense of permanence to it. I guess there's going to be these wipes. I'm not looking forward to the wipes. I keep upgrading things with the factions, and I'm like, I don't want to lose my ability to, you know, have my heat, you know, get restored 20% faster. I worked hard for that. I updated Sekaguchi genetics quests and did a bunch of who knows what else to unlock that. I don't want to lose that. We'll see how I feel about it. I know people lose it on purpose in Arc Raiders. You know, they get into the expedition and try and lose it on purpose. So we'll see how I feel about that loss at some point. But like the race is on, and then everybody starts at the start again. I promise I haven't forgotten the question. I think it's some of the most interesting gaming there is. The social dynamic, the preparatory dynamic, the sense of loss and risk is something unique in multiplayer gaming that I haven't felt in decades. Yeah. But I think it's just a little slice of the pie. It's like a little sliver. You know, some people out here are going like, yeah, this is great. Can you stop talking about extraction shooters, Andy? Some people are ready for me to be done, maybe. You know, and this show is not the marathon show. It's the Andy B show, as you may know. So I'm going to talk about the games if I'm playing them, if I'm interested in them, but I try and make the show that's like interesting for everybody. And I think it is on the edge, to answer your question. Finally, I think it is the frontier of gaming. It's on the edge, the outside, breaking new ground that can only be picked up by doing something different, new, shocking, excruciating to some people. I have a friend that was like, I don't think I want to play, you know, Arc Raiders. I don't think I want to get into it because why? Because why would I want to lose my gear? And that person is now the person that's the most addicted to this game that I know. They log in and play every single night. Sometimes I'll log in and just run the daily quest or buy the daily hull cracker, you know? They're more into it than ever. But what they started talking about was, you know what I miss, they would tell me. They would say, what I miss is when you would get in with a crew, you know, you had your group of 3, 4, 5, 6 people, and you would log into a old Modern Warfare lobby and basically play that Counter-Strike version of Call of Duty where it was like round base. It was basically Counter-Strike is what he was describing. Because there was this sense of weight, you know, heaviness. That's heavy, Doc. The sense of weight. And camaraderie. And Arc Raiders and Marathon and maybe other extraction shooters, but those are the only two that I've played, have a sense of weight and a sense of camaraderie punctuated by intense violence. Where else are you going to get that? That's what's special about them. And even if you don't play them, people are fascinated by these games. They like hearing about it. They like watching it. I don't think they're that bad. I think Arc Raiders is actually, to me, harder of a game. I think Marathon is challenging in different ways, but I think Arc Raiders, because of the sense that we're all in it together against the Arc, I really like the story in Arc Raiders, that everybody should group up and be friendly. But of course, that's not how it goes. And that's not how everybody feels, which is what makes it super exciting. But there's that sense that it's like, I might want to pair up with them. Maybe we should, be in a group. Or maybe we're going to fight and you don't know. And at least in Marathon, it's clear. It's adversarial. It's shoot on sight. You see somebody else that's not in your crew, call them out, light them up, or hide, as the case may be. Yeah. Great question. Great question. For people listening to this later, that was a live question that came in. You can send your emails, your video game emails, to podcast@andb.show. And a matter of fact, since we're at this part of the show and I haven't said it yet, you can go to andb.show. That's the Patreon. You can subscribe for free, or you can subscribe as a friend of the show to support the show. You'll get my quips a couple of times a week. I'll put shorts and videos. I'll put exclusive videos out there. And if you just want to sign up and support the show with $1, you can do that too. And thank you for considering it. Yeah. But I encourage you to go join there for free, no matter what. So we never get separated by some Mark Zuckerberg algorithm or something, right? When they change it and it's like, well, I guess I don't see Andy's content anymore. Well, you do if you're signed up at andb.show. That's the Patreon. Okay. You need to know a couple of things, and I'm here to tell them to you. We got a bunch of quick news, and here it is. The number one thing you need to know is that Ball Pit is now out on mobile. I've talked a lot about Ball Pit. It was one of the first games on the Switch that I fully rolled credits on. I played a bunch of games. Ball Pit on mobile, despite how some of the initial screenshots looked, I was like, oh, is it going to be more vertically oriented? And the answer is no. When you go to the actual game on the App Store, it is a widescreen with virtual thumbsticks version, so it looks kind of like it looks on the PC or on the Switch, and it's free to start. I was surprised by that. So the game is only going to be $10, which is I think $5 less than it was on the Switch, but it's on iOS and Android already. As I record this, it's out. Try before you buy a model, free download, no ads, one in-app purchase just to unlock the rest of the game. And they said it's going to have full feature parity with PC and console. So you've already got the Regal update, and then the Future, Shadow, and Naturalist update are out there. And if you're like, what the heck is Ball Pit? What are we talking about? Go to my YouTube channel. You can just search for the Andy B Show, and I've got a number of videos I've recorded up there about Ball Pit. I got a little Ball Pit playlist if you want to hear me talk about the game and watch me play it. Over 1 million copies sold of that game. So you'd be in good company because I've played it. Another one that I'm probably not going to play, but that I'm going to watch play because it's going to be in my house, is going to be Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. I realized that there must be a new trailer for this out because I have an episode about Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. It was like the hero game for the week. And it's an old episode. It's like one of my first. And it started getting a lot of hits again. I was like, what's going on with this old catalog episode of the Andy B Show? And it's like, oh, right, because this is out. People are searching for it, so it's coming back up. So they've got a new release date out for Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. It's coming out in May. I think it's like May 26th. I'll check that in a second. But it's got this like painterly look to it. And Mr. E, the Mysterious Book, if you're down with E, is like a codex of some type, maybe a Pokedex. All these little creatures you find when you learn something about them, it'll kind of fill out the book and you can name them. And so it definitely feels more like story-like between the painterly look and the kind of almost uh, like puzzle solving nature of like filling out the book, finding these new creatures, and solving the puzzles inside of the game. It looks less like just the traditional platformer. My kids have played the bejesus out of Yoshi's Crafted World on the Switch. And so I think they'll still like this, but it looks a little more puzzle solvy, a little more contemplative than just like the traditional platformer. So if you've got kids that are into Yoshi, this one's probably going to look pretty good. I bet it ends up on a birthday wish list for my youngest B. So definitely check that out if that's you. You know, I know we're talking about hardcore frontier games around here, Crimson Desert, Marathon, but as an adult gamer with kids, as a grown up with children, you might need to know about Glubbit and Mr. E in the Yoshi and the Mysterious book. Yeah, it looks like it is May 21st, a Switch 2 exclusive. And it's not the only Switch 2 exclusive people are clamoring about, right? Pokemon Pocopia came out last week, and I've got some mutuals out there on threads that are like, man, I didn't think I was going to have to buy a Switch 2 anytime soon, but Pocopia is only on Switch 2. It's not on the first one. What are you going to do? I got excited because Replaced came back up like somehow, like in my, came across the old video game desk, as I like to say. Replaced showed up, swiped across the desk, and I was like, yeah. And then I went and rewatched the trailer. And this game is like you're an AI that gets put into a human body, I think, in like an alternate history 1980s that looks a lot like a side-scrolling pixel art 2D Blade Runner. Best way I can describe it off the cuff. Beautiful looking game. The fights look intense, and they do a lot of work where the camera, it isn't just like fixed in its 2D, like 16:9. It'll like shift on its axis as you get into like really tough fights, which might be a little disorienting for some folks. But it's doing a lot with like camera angle here that I really like. And when I went back and watched the trailer, because somebody was just like, oh, I'm so excited for Replace next month. And I was like, next month? I'm pretty sure it came out and comes out in March. So it got a little delay. It is coming out in April. The launch trailer, or release date trailer, still says March 12th. And I mean, you can bet. I was out there looking for the game stores. I was like, where's this game at? Because it looks so good if you're into Blade Runner 2D games. They look like they got some pretty good hand-to-hand combat. You know, they're doing a lot of cool things where they're flipping weapons around and yeah, very punctuated combat. So I can't tell exactly what the story is about, but it's a very like Blade Runner, I would say cyberpunk, but not 2077, like cyberpunk 1987 is the vibe. But they're doing so much with these pixelated games to give them the lighting and the view that just looks so dramatic. Also kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the kind of dirty parts of Andor. Yeah. Yep. Not March 12th, 2026. Instead, the new release date, apparently, is April 14th. They said the game's technically finished, but it needs a few more weeks for polish and stability based on the Steam demo feedback. Now, I have Steam, but the demo was only on Windows versions of Steam, so, you know, I'm the odd person out there. It's fine. I'm not going to buy a Windows machine. I don't care. Someday, when they finally release the Steam machine, I can play whatever isn't Windows. How's that going to work, actually? The Steam machine's going to come out. I guess you're going to have a lot of people that want to get their game Steam machine verified, like they want it to be Steam Deck. They really want their game Steam Deck verified, right? Because if it's Steam Deck verified, people are going to play it. But it's not a Windows machine. It's Linux-based. And if it's Linux-based, those games should be out on the Mac. I don't know. Um, okay, do we need to talk about High Guard or can we just move on? Like, did we do it already? High Guard shut down, and we're done. How does that feel? It lasted a little bit longer than Conquered, which was up for 14 days. High Guard was apparently up for 46 days. So please don't make High Guard. At least not without testing it, you know? Like get some more feedback out there before you dive deep and put in this huge game. Please. Okay. We did it. I talked about it. Hope that's enough. Okay. There was a Nito Burrito game that I saw a little bit of that I'd like to talk about. This one's called Motion Rec. And Motion Rec being like REC, like recording. It's a little pixel art 2D game, very lightweight on the graphics. And it looks like it's mostly in like black and white because when they bring in color, the green and the red, it's for recording your movements. And there was a game like this, I was trying to remember the name of it, where you would, it was like you would die and then reboot. It was like Time Bandits, Time something, Time Killers, Time Split. It'll come to me, where it was 2D and you were doing, it's like a shmup, like a shoot 'em up. And when you died, you would play the level again, but your, like a ghost version of you was already there. Whatever you had done was still happening again. And so now there were two of you kind of fighting alongside of each other and taking down tougher and tougher and tougher robots. It was on the Xbox way back in the day. Anyway, or Motion Rec looks a lot like that, except it's not a big shmup with combat and you're not replicating yourself over and over and over. What you're doing is you're recording your motions and then you're playing them back. So if you jump up 2 or 3 times as a recorded motion and then you move over to like this abyss, area, and then you play it back, you jump up a couple times, even if there's nothing to jump on. So it kind of like records you in space and time, and then you can use that to solve puzzles. Nintendo Switch, PS5, April 2nd is the release date on that one. Motion Rec seems pretty neat to me. Yeah. A tape recorder themed puzzle action game, they say. $10. Oh, it's already out on Steam. $10. Yeah. Speaking of things that won't be out on Steam, I made a bad joke. Nobody liked it. There was an article on Push Square that said, no one's buying this on PS5 or PC. They were talking about all of the games that aren't going to be coming from PC anymore from Sony, such as the new Ceres game. Apparently, Ghost of Yote had their port to PC canceled as they start to pull back their single-player games off of PC or off of their PC release track. They're going to keep the multiplayer games out there. But because of the way the new Xbox is going to work, this is the theory that I've heard, that the way the new Xbox is going to work is it's going to say Xbox, but it's going to play any of your PC games. And so if Sony's releasing their games on PC, then guess where their Sony games now show up? Their single-player games would now show up on your Xbox at some point. And I hadn't even thought of that. When I heard that, I was like, Sony is petty enough to do that, I feel. Like, I do think that they are just sure of themselves in such a way that they are not going to let you feel good about having their single player games be like, they would drop all those sales for sure, so that they didn't end up having to deal with them being on PC or rather an Xbox. I doubt that's what's going on. I think the meta version of that is it just costs them a bunch of money and nobody's buying those single player games because they release them a year afterwards in a lot of cases. And after the course of a year, it's a single player game. Not a lot of people are playing it at that point. And so, it's like a year-old single player game competing against brand new single player games kind of at the same price. Like, I wouldn't be interested in that either. Like, don't give me a year-old game at the same price. But in a way, that's what Xbox does. That's what Xbox does when they put their year-old games like Avowed out on PlayStation. You get a better version of the game because they've updated it, But they launch it on PlayStation as if it's a brand new game, and it's been out a year. But when they do that on PlayStation, those Xbox games sell like gangbusters because they have good games, especially now. But I just don't think it's going the same way on PC. So I made the joke that there's going to be a PC port begging simulator instead, because that sounds like more fun to a lot of PC port people than playing Sony's year-old games on the PC. That upset a bunch of PC people. Fine. Look, I wouldn't want to play a year-old game at the full price either. I'll wait for it to drop down. I get you. Yeah. Speaking of things that are going to be full price, Fortnite is shaking the old alms cup. Yeah. They've got all of their microtransactions, of course, the V-Bucks to buy their skins, and they are increasing the price for the first time. According to Polygon.com, they got the story there. Fortnite V-Bucks are getting a price hike. The cost of running Fortnite has gone up a lot, Epic said in a statement. Server costs? Development cost? From the article, after making an eye-watering $6 billion in 2025, it might come as a shock that Epic Games is once more raising the price of Fortnite's in-game currency, V-Bucks. Xbox shared the news, or Epic Games, excuse me, shared the news via Fortnite blog post stating the cost of running Fortnite has gone up a lot and we're raising prices to help pay the bills. Aww. Poor babies. Poor babies. Yeah. Yeah. What I really think they're doing is they're raising the cost so that you'll end up on their subscription fee. They have I'll talk about it in the article. But they've got like a monthly fee that you can subscribe to Fortnite with. And I bet the price hasn't gone up there, but I don't care enough to check because I look at Fortnite once a year. But if you're into Fortnite and you're buying V-Bucks hand over fist, you might be a little upset about that. Yeah. Okay. The PlayStation Plus game catalog for March is about to go pretty hard. We got to take a look at it. New on game catalog. These come out, I think, this week. Space Marine 2 is going to be on game catalog. You no longer have an excuse. It's time for Space Marine 2. They're getting Madden 2026, which, you know, football season's over, whatever. They have a game called Lord of the Rings Return to Moria, which I was like, I didn't realize there was Lord of the Rings came out. Some game that looks way too creepy for me called Blasphemous 2. Persona 5 Royal, which is like a big game, like literally, and also kind of a huge get for game catalog. And then the one that I'm kind of excited about, I already own Space Marine 2. Otherwise, I would be like jumping up and down on my chair. But Metal Eden is in there. Metal Eden, we'd spent some time talking about it a couple weeks ago. Played the demo of it. And Metal Eden is a video game that if you wanted to play Marathon, because you like that like future retro aesthetic, like you like the gameplay, you like the shooties, but you really don't want to play an extraction shooter. You don't want to deal with all of the intricacies of that game. You just want the futuristic theme. You want the graphics to look amazing, and you just want a good single player game. Metal Eden. From the PlayStation blog, Metal Eden is an adrenaline rush, sci-fi FPS. The advanced hyper unit Asuka is sent on a suicide mission to rescue the citizen cores from the vast monolithic city Mobius. Once a hopeful new home for humanity, now turned into a deadly trap. Sound familiar? Like with Marathon, right? Like Tau Ceti 4 is like, they got to go solve a mystery. Like we don't know what's going on. And it's blast your way through the internal defense core in cybernetic warfare, confront the engineers and uncover the mysteries of Project Eden. Dive into cybernetic warfare against the machine forces that protect the secrets of an artificial world. Fight a diverse roster of tough, agile mecha troops and elemental forces. It plays like Doom from 2016, but better. So, and they also have a very would you kindly coded like villain in your head, kind of like creeping you along, like, nudging you, showering you with compliments, but also he's super creepy. He's like a bad dude. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be neat. All right, one last one. There is from the Future Game Spring Showcase, there is a new Dave the Diver DLC. And if you've played Dave the Diver before, you and I could be friends, I think. So they're going out in the jungle. I think the DLC is called Into the Jungle. And I don't know if you're actually going to be doing much diving, or if you're just doing spelunking or what. I see some diving, but Dave the Diver is one of these games that has a lot of hidden mini games that don't seem like the thing that you signed up for, and it keeps it just as exciting and interesting. Usually top side you're doing restaurant stuff, down below you're doing all of the rest of the game where supposedly the game you're supposed to be doing the diving part. Anyway, June 18th, Dave the Diver in the Jungle has come out. A freshwater focused expansion featuring a new restaurant and biome to explore, alongside exclusive tools and real-time progression mechanics. Ooh, yeah, I think that looks pretty cool. All right, not much has changed since last week as far as I should really get back to that game. There's some new games coming out, but really for me, it's Marathon. Don't forget, you can absolutely, and I will absolutely read them if you send them your emails. Send your emails to podcast@andb.show. You want to. I do. And when you do, I will read them, and I may read them live on the show. No emails this week. Lots of feedback, across some of my other socials where I post clips of the show, mostly around Marathon, how it makes them feel. And, we did get a great live question today from AI Hack 20 thing. This is part of the reason I do this live. You never know who's going to come in and ask you, do you think Arc Raiders is the new frontier of gaming? Yes, I do. It's at least at the bleeding edge, just like this podcast. Bringing you games you care about, the games I care about, a little bit of connection, something to listen to when you're doing the laundry, taking a walk. So glad you're here today. Share the show with somebody you appreciate. Go to andb.show to join the Patreon. Subscribe to the show to support it. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great week, whether you're out there in Speranza, Tau Ceti 4, or in that hellscape of Pokemon Pocopia, rebuilding things, Viva Pinata style. There's never been a better time to be in video games, as someone I like and know likes to say. And there's never been a better time to listen to the AndB Show, a video game podcast for grown-ups. Thank you for listening. We're going to see you next week with another episode. Bye-bye.